Today, I'm your host, Jimmy Talbert, partner at Why Not Results, and I'm really excited to talk with Joe Black, who's an important member of our team here at Why Not Results, to introduce the concept of sales and marketing conversion. This episode will be purely an introduction to the concepts of conversion marketing. As in all of our episodes, we sit down with industry leaders, sales professionals, marketing pros, and entrepreneurs who aren't just talking in theory, they're actually doing, and they're driving real results. So if you're tired of guessing and ready to grow, let's jump in and start the conversation. Let's go, Joe.
How's it going, Jimmy? It's good to see you. It's been a little bit since we talked, but
it sure has, yeah.
Good time seeing you anyway, so.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I'm really excited to talk to you because, you know, you've, I would say over the last, 9 months, something like that.
Yeah, around
I'm assuming you've grown a lot professionally.
100%. And been a wild couple of months for sure.
In being part of this crazy train that's a small business trying to grow, and the digital world in general. I mean, the changes just in the industry and everything like that definitely play a role. I'm interested because you're on the front lines actually talking to potential clients, everything like that, and out there prospecting. I'm interested to hear, what are your, I guess, first question, what has been the most unexpected? So if you look back to when you started doing this sort of outreach approach and content creation approach, you know, it's sort of all encompassing. What's been the most unexpected thing that you've seen so far?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's been interesting. Like you said, finished college up, kind of was in a, not necessarily limbo, was doing something else, and then kind of was like, I kind of want to do something else, and came over here now after doing my show and everything like that, Sensor Sports and everything like that, and then kind of came onto the team. And I think in the sales realm, kind of looking to what's been the most kind of eye-opening, or at least like something I didn't expect, I guess, kind of back to your question. I think for me has always been the level at which you kind of need to stay ahead of the curve more than anything.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for a lot of individuals, again, like no sales experience when it comes to, like corporate sales or anything like that. Worked at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. You're going from
normal stuff where I'm just doing that
to B2B.
Yeah,
B2B
exactly.
sales
And individual to individual who are, small business to small business, and that kind of concept of like, you're working around these numbers that other small businesses have as a company, while also trying to figure out your small numbers and what that means to us. And I think for me, that's been the biggest part, is just trying to stay ahead of the curve all the time. We've done obviously a lot with kind of trying to figure out how to integrate AI. So it's interesting because I kind of came into the sales realm, right, as AI has now been exploding into a different realm, which
it's a new world completely.
Yeah, which is crazy to me, which is then changing the way that I'm handling stuff and then the way that we want to promote things. I think that's part of the staying ahead of the curve right now. Like trying to figure out like, all right, how does AI integrate correctly into, my daily routine? How does High Level, how does Monday, how do those AI integrated services, like just all of that stuff. It's just been a lot of learning.
Okay.
Trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, but what about interactions with actual leads? I mean, finding people and then getting them a little bit interested and then actually converting them to working with us.
Yeah, so for me, the biggest part, I'm a fairly outgoing individual. I don't struggle to talk to people in general. I think for me, learning to direct that in a sales direction without feeling, I think it's a shared idea of kind of feeling pushy.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that was something that I didn't recognize at all starting out. It was just like, I'm just gonna go be myself and it'll be fine. And then it very much was like, but you gotta push the envelope. You can't, it's great to have conversations and a lot to build those relationships. But at the same time, if I'm going to a networking event, if I'm going to X, Y, and Z, we're all there. We all know why we're all there. We're all trying to connect, trying to relate. And I think having those, creating a formula, because I think that's, even some of the classes, I've been doing more sales classes and stuff like that, trying to get, learn more and more.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things say like, being an amateur, you just don't have the system set up. Professionals have systems set up for how they want to handle things. And for me, the closing realm, the different aspects of sales are all foreign when it comes to real interactions with me.
Sure.
And I think for me, interacting with individuals, figuring out their pain points, figuring out the direct way to talk to those pain points and how I can help them out with those specific things has just been, again, like you said, it's just been a process, learning that type of stuff, learning what makes sense, learning how video fixes certain pain points, learning how video can amplify certain businesses and stuff like that. So
absolutely. And I think what you're describing is a funnel, is that sales and marketing educational or conversion funnel, right? That people go in, and we're going to cover that as far as like where that fits in, and how to sort of fill in some of those gaps, right? Because you can only be in so many places at one time. Not everyone, when they have a question, is ever going to reach out to you.
100%.
They're just going to live with that question, unless you proactively, have things out there. So, we'll definitely talk about that. Now, talk to me a little bit about, so once let's say you get a lead, or you talk to someone who might be interested, whether it's doing a podcast, or maybe they need some sales videos, whatever, they're doing a course, or who cares? Whatever the need,
whatever
is.
that product is.
Yeah, that we could, and hey, we can fulfill this at a super high level. What's your process on like follow up to drive them towards taking action on something?
Yeah, so for me, it's been a lot of learning that. We've been kind of working in that direction. A lot of what I was doing to start really was like, just go get them, and we'll try and figure it out later. And I think that follow up is something that I'm currently crafting. I don't have a set way about going about it, which again is, I think, part of the reason that I can struggle with it.
Yeah.
For me, it was very much using high level, trying to learn the automation within high level, trying to figure out, different ways to curate personal messages to individuals I met. And a lot of it came down to my follow-up just being me reaching out again.
Sure.
Mostly by email, sometimes by text, but mostly by email. And I think, again, through that process of doing that, I've figured out, emails are great. Text messages are better. In person's the best for me, personally.
Okay. And, I'd say I agree with that to a certain degree. At the same time, I would say that every lead is different, and the way that they're going to consume information is different, or the way they're going to consume it the best and the most efficiently. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to get whatever communication we get to them to drive them towards making a decision one way or another as quickly as possible. That being said, there are also people, and I would say most people, where even though like I might be someone who responds to texts quite a bit, right? But I see an email and it just happens to catch me when I'm you know what I mean? And that's where I think consistency across all levels is actually in this world where everyone's so ADD and so all over the place. I think you have to be everywhere all the time in order to actually be effective and actually drive like real results that then you can start to quantify. And there's some situations where you actually can track most of those
For sure.
in what worked and what didn't, what drove, that next section. You can't always though. And so in that respect, right, even if you can track 3 out of the 4, you still need to do all 4.
Okay.
That's the way I look at it, and what I've seen success with in the past. And so what I want to kind of walk you through is sort of the initially, like at least it doesn't matter whether you're finding people online, whether you're doing networking events, whether you're doing whatever, right? Cold calling, you fill in the blank on how you find people who are interested, but how you take them from an awareness level to being someone who's willing to pay you money, right? And sort of what that looks like. So,
and I think that's kind of where I've been stuck is how do I push over the edge more than anything? Because I feel like I talk to a decent amount of people at networking events, whatever it is. And it's always that, all right, but how do I get you to, because to me, I feel like it's always convincing. Like that's the feel that I've had. And how do I convince you?
It sounds to me like you're potentially selling people too early.
Okay.
So you think about it, okay, you've got different levels. So you've got, and the way that I always think about it from a marketing perspective, right, is you've got your suspects, your prospects, your leads / opportunities, right? And then you've got where the decision is made and your clients or your customers, right?
Okay.
And this doesn't matter. You could have a fully online business, you could have a fully offline business. It does not matter. This is the same theoretical process, okay? So you have people who maybe they saw a video. Maybe you shook their hand at a networking event and gave them your little 15, 20-second spiel and nothing else, right? That's a suspect, right? They could have seen your video on social media. They could have whatever, right? They maybe visited your website for who knows what reason, right? And then the prospect category is for businesses that are capturing people who, and maybe they're capturing them with some information. So, for example, people you meet and you grab their business card, right? That's a prospect now. Right, that's potentially. You now have a way to follow up with them and hopefully drive them towards a lead or an opportunity, depending on how you look at it, right? I would say opportunity is more a B2B term, whereas like prospects more of a B2C term.
Okay.
Regardless, like they're one and the same in most categories.
B2C being business to consumer.
If you think, if you're thinking about it in a multi-layered situation, right, where you get their information, and then once you actually are able to engage with them, right, and then you get to kind of the decision-making phase, and what that entails is, in many cases, so it takes follow-up first to get them to. It takes each of these stages. There's a conversion, right? It takes a conversion if we're talking digitally, for example. That's where a lot of businesses are, right? There's a lot of people paying for a lot of ads and all this crap
spent on it.
But if you don't think about, like, if they're only thinking about how do I get people to my site and get people to purchase, and that's their only concern, they're never going to be successful, and unless they have just some dynamite,
ridiculous,
stupid product, which 99% of people don't.
Yeah.
And so let's look at, all right, how do we get people from visiting a site or clicking on an ad or whatever, right? Or shaking your hand to being willing to watch a video, being willing to have a conversation with someone, being willing to click to the next page, read an article, fill in the blank. What's that next? But each of these are conversion points, and it's about having compelling messaging that draws to the right person.
Okay.
Right. And again, each business is different.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're going to have other episodes where we actually cover
that specific
these with different types of businesses, different types of situations, stuff like that.
The one thing I think for me that has been good is that my follow-up post client I think is very good. I keep up with people. Awesome. I'm always asking back. And I feel like it really is that middle spot that I struggle with. I guess like more question to you, kind of in this aspect of suspect, prospect, lead, forgot what the last one was, opportunity. Is there a certain limit of time you put yourself towards? What in your mind leads to something that is worth more time in a sense? Or is everybody worth the same amount of time? If I'm spending, doing 4 out of 4 for every single individual when it comes to follow up, that's the same, in a sense, that's the same amount of time placed on everyone if I'm doing all 4. Granted, it doesn't have to be a large amount of time. But how do you start to distinguish between this deserves more time, this doesn't deserve as much time?
Well, I mean, what you're talking about is essentially sales and marketing.
Correct, yeah.
So where does sales and marketing become more important than some of the other remedial things, right? And I would refer you to someone like Jeff Bezos, who said, if I had $10,000 left in my bank, so one of the wealthiest men in the world, if he lost everything, and I think it was 10,000 that he said, but left in my bank, I'd spend them on marketing. Spend every dollar on marketing and try to turn things around. And I think that's the way you also need to consider your time, right? What is the most important? Where does, in most large business, especially in the B2B world, but really any business, where does the majority of the spending go? It goes into drawing successful businesses.
Yeah, for sure.
We're not talking about the rest.
Yeah.
It goes into sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the reality is video is an instrumental part of both.
Yeah.
And we'll cover how that fits in, because it really is, and it's something I believe in. That's why I partnered with Mario.
Yeah, 100%. That's why my conversations are always pretty fruitful.
And even before I ever partnered with him, I don't know if you know this story, but one of the reason we partnered, so I met him through a mutual connection, who was doing some work for him. I ended up just tagging along, and he needed some stuff done. I helped him with that. But for another business completely. And I saw the studio. I was like, what the hell is this? This is awesome.
Yeah. It's the reaction everybody has.
What are you doing here?
And open the door. If they come on my show, they were like, wait a minute.
Yeah. And then I ended up, I was in the corporate world. I went to another company. I was head of marketing at a company called Chime. It's called Lofty now. The CRM and marketing automation for real estate professionals. And so when we needed some video done, I was like, oh, I know a guy with a studio. It wasn't something he didn't pursue me necessarily. For sure. Right? But I was just like, oh, I know a guy. But it was because of my belief in the way video can drive sales. And like the first video him and I did together for that company when I was working for them. You know what I mean? We drove record sales from an initial campaign, and it was my first 2 weeks with the company
That's wild.
that we did it. Yeah, came in here, recorded
good little
it,
piece
just-
to throw in real quick.
Yeah, I mean, but it was, and it's because video provides a way to connect with people. So you think about, you have a funnel. Okay, so let's say on the suspect level. Okay, let's say you get in front of, whether it's online, offline, whatever. Let's say you get in front of 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Right. From that, let's say you get somewhere between 150 people, actually, let's just call it 100, who are somewhat interested. And I don't think I'm out of line with those numbers either. You know, you shake a lot of hands to get anyone who's actually interested too.
Sure.
Just like a website gets a lot of people, or a video,
Well, and even
or
our
whatever.
views as of late have been driving more for sure.
Yeah. And so you get in front of this many people, you get this many people who are actually interested. And then from there, you get so many people who are willing to talk to you, right? Which is the next step, and who will actually show up for the appointment,
100%.
stuff like that. And it's really between that point, okay? So the suspect point, you just got to keep putting crap out there.
Yeah, just continue to gather suspects. Continue to
doing what you're
continue to
doing,
gather,
right? And again, you need a lot of content to do that.
Yeah.
But then the next point is like when you're able to either have a conversation with someone or watch what they're doing on your website, to then be able to resend or retarget with very specific and diagnosed types of content, which will overcome that objection.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's where having very dialed in content, and this is tough for any business.
Yeah,
you know what
100%,
I mean. I mean, we're talking.
That's the goal.
We're talking in a perfect world.
Yeah. The goal is to get.
But to be able to do that as effectively as possible, right? You need two things. You need some process, right, for what type of content, how you're creating it, how you're sending it to them, when it's being sent up, and then you also need automation. Okay. Whether email automation to trigger you to do something, to make a certain call, to do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you still need the automation with text message that goes out,
Yeah,
whatever, to fill in along the way.
Yeah.
Right. For what you can't do. You can't be in every place at once.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, me and Mario talked about, the biggest, I think it was me and Mario, and then I was talking to one of the other guys we were partners with Derek, the social media strategist, and talking about the reason Pepsi isn't putting out ads for you to buy Pepsi in the moment. Mm-hmm. Again, granted, this very, very different example, but they're just putting Pepsi ads out so that when you go to the grocery store at some point, you think, maybe I should buy Pepsi. I don't know if I should.
Right.
And again, there's no reason to not adopt that mindset with small business. Yeah. You don't have the, influence of Pepsi, but the idea still stands. You're not trying to necessarily sell to them in that one email. You're trying to stay top of mind and all the time.
To push back on that, you might not have the influence of Pepsi, but that's actually why you need it that much more.
Yeah, fair.
It's because you don't have that brand recognition, right?
Fair, 100%.
But on top of that, okay, it's about having I would say, venture to say, with most small businesses, there's some sort of manual follow-up, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But then there's a bunch of touches that in most cases are going to be needed between now and then. Because if you can do things to increase the traffic on your website, do all the, increase your views, whatever, right? The only way to grow your business with that model, right, is all right, now we have to double the amount of people. Well, I can't double Joe.
Yeah, 100%.
Because he's doing some networking. It's really expensive to double the views on your website.
100%.
It's really expensive to, and then the problem is that then let's say we're able to put you in that many more places. Well, now you're able to follow up with less people. Now you're able to take less phone calls, to do less things, right? Things are going to slip through the cracks. So here's the thing is you need that's why a process for lowering the funnel, right? Because that's up high.
Yeah.
Lowering the funnel is that much more important, is to drive conversion. So to really grow the business, what you need to do is then, if you're already getting people into the funnel, right? The first step in driving actual increase in sales is to improve that conversion process. And what that takes is process and automation, obviously testing and iteration and optimization. You know what I mean?
For sure.
That's down the road.
Yeah.
But initially it's a process and automation. So that, because you can't test something unless you're doing something consistently.
Okay.
You can't test where you don't know where the holes are.
Yeah.
If you're doing something different every freaking time.
100%. Yeah.
And so that's where, and so I think back to like a saying that I heard, and I've been in the digital sales and marketing world for a long time, right? So like a normal person says, if you want something right, you do it yourself, right? Well, if the reality comes down to, if you want something done right, you build a process, okay? Process is in place for businesses that are built to last. Process creates scalability. If you want to have a scalable process, right, you need to adopt automation and have the proper systems in place.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that you need to wait until you have all the proper systems in place to ever start creating content and putting it out there and doing it? Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. Okay. One
Don't wait.
Yeah.
Don't need to wait.
Yeah. If anything, you need the content
Yeah.
and you need to start pushing that crap out there so that you can build the systems and everything else that you put the content into to start going out to everyone and start, you know what I mean, for email marketing, text messaging,
Yeah.
and all that crap. Right.
Yeah, and I think that for me is a big part right now. Like, hey, like let's formulate something, test it out, formulate something again, test it out. And for me, it very much like I've lacked in that realm of follow-up, testing the follow-up with different types of emails because of whatever reason. But
Lack of consistency.
yeah, just lack of consistency.
Which
I'm
is-
not spending
which is a
time
lack
doing
of
that specific
process,
thing all the time.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which Mario's been walking you through some different things that
Yeah,
we
for
put
sure.
together with the high level and stuff like that.
Yeah, which again is it's interesting because we talked a little bit high level when I first came on, and Mario was like, "Hey, like we're gonna push this off for a little bit because it's a lot of stuff."
We're talking CRM and marketing automation for anyone who doesn't understand.
Yeah, for sure. And for me now, like getting into it, I'm like, God bless. There's a lot of there's a lot of use, but it's also massive.
Yeah,
like all of the different stuff. And even today, I was trying to make a different workflow within it, and I was like, good God, this is confusing me.
It's and that's where I don't think you need to like right now. I don't think you need to necessarily because there's things built.
Yeah,
What you're doing.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
There's automation built, ready to go. I don't think it's that you need to worry about initially like building your own process, right?
Yeah, 100%.
That's not you don't learn to drive a car by learning to take apart the fucking engine.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
You learn to drive a car by learning to sit behind the steering wheel and drive.
Yeah.
And push the pedals and slowly push on the brake.
Yeah.
Do things like that, right? Not by learning how to take it apart.
Yeah, 100%.
And so now, does that mean that you can't learn
Yeah, along
that, right? And does that mean that no one's ever learned one before the other? No, I'm sure there's people who have.
Yeah, 100%.
But the vast majority of the best mechanics in the world, I guarantee, learned how to drive before they learned how to take the damn thing
Yeah,
apart.
yeah,
Okay?
100%. 100%.
Just and I think it's the same way with a system like that, right? When I worked in that world, I used to show people the CRM and marketing automation world. I used to tell people all the time because we'd highlight like these incredible things that this incredibly powerful and customizable technology, and they came to me originally with a very simple need. You know, hey, I need when someone fills out this form, I need it to do this, and then when they buy, I need it to do this, and to drive an upsell campaign, and to do blah blah blah, and do trigger fulfillment, and do all the stuff like that. And then I'd be like, okay, and say, tell me about their process, and okay, well, just so you know, we could also do blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Right. But then I'd have to bring it back
Yeah,
in
100%.
because I'm selling something that's costs more than what they're going to want to spend. I
Yeah,
already knew
100%.
that.
100%.
I already knew that going into this conversation. And I spent almost 10 years doing this, and I'd have to bring it back in okay, but Rome wasn't built in a day, okay? You don't have to become the mother effing automation Taj Mahal on day one,
100%.
okay? So let's not, if you start with building everything, nothing's going to get done.
Okay.
And again, we can have entire other episodes about that kind of crap.
Yeah, parts of CRMs, right? Especially again, like high level for me, it's just like, yeah, bro, explain to me.
Yeah.
One section.
Yeah.
That could be crazy.
And so I would say, dude, that's not something you need to worry about right now. But
to that point of, not built in a day, I think we have definitely, my mind has definitely shifted towards that.
Right.
Hey, let's get you in for something simple. Let's make it easy.
Right.
We've got all these different, we got a studio. You can come film this massive thing in a studio. But what do you actually need at the time that will get you started with whatever you need to get started?
And I would say and I'm not saying it's perfect.
Yeah.
I mapped the initial conversion process that's in there. Okay. Does it mean it's perfect? No.
Yeah.
It was originally, parts of it were built for when Bob was cold calling.
Yeah, 100%.
Stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean it's perfect. Doesn't mean the content's perfect. Right. But it's much easier to go in there and change an email, maybe throw a piece of content.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to rebuild the whole thing.
Yeah.
Let's just go change these words.
Which again for
and
me is
plug this in.
much more my goal as of late of like, all right, how do I just align this for me? What do I need?
Well, and I think that's as easy as then relying on the other people you have around you. Just say, hey, can you just take care of this for me?
Yeah.
Right.
That's something I struggle with pretty heavily.
And because you're also a technical guy, and so I think it's understandable to want to, like, you see this powerful piece of technology and you're like, oh, this is everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Slow it down.
Yeah.
Slow it down. You don't need to do everything.
Yeah.
The reality is like formulating an effective process overall, and this has changed since I was selling compared to what you're doing now, okay? Is also identifying and becoming crystal clear on who your ideal customer is, okay? And I think that's another thing that we can have a whole nother episode on, because that's so important as it pertains to sales and marketing, is just understanding truly how to break that down, and break that down to how they understand and appreciate the different levels of your offerings and how to drive that progression. Okay. And that's something I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands of clients on.
Yeah.
Over the years.
Most important things you have to have dialed in for sure.
But then how to first attract that ideal client, how to engage that. So once you understand, right? All right, well, where do they live? What do they do? What are they, and I think we're doing okay with that right now. I think you're doing great with that. But then how do we engage them? And then how do we understand what education they need to drive them towards a decision? Because at the end of the day, yeses and nos are fine. Is the maybes that will freaking kill you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know you're seeing that too.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I think we have several more episodes in this series that will drive towards that.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to break that down and really push towards that, to push towards, like I said, specific things that drive towards making decisions, specific things on how you can take who your ideal client is and develop enticing lead magnets for them, enticing things that progress them to want a consultation or want a tour or want to fill in the blank. You know what I mean? Want to take the next step. And the more we can do that, and the more we can dial that in and have a way to actually measure the results, we're going to be in a much better place.
Yeah, 100%.
What other I guess questions or?
I think it's good. I think again, surface level. I think most of my questions will start to go more in depth.
Yeah,
we don't have time for that right now. But very much in that direction of, I think most of the stuff I have questions about are deliberately geared at this specific workflow and how to get that specific thing to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of my questioning.
That's system stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'd say again, like, and I think that as you start to understand how the systems support the strategy, you're also going to
Fair.
You know what I mean? You're
100%.
You're going to be. Things are going to click a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, you seem fairly analytical, and so it's not going to be real tough for you to you to grasp.
Very much is just hands on, and then I'm good to go. I'm like, okay,
yes,
cool, sounds good.
Yeah. And so that stuff can be broken down, and again, the strategy is one of the most important things, and we'll break that down actually through this series as well, is just better understanding the strategy and the psychology of different aspects of the conversion, the psychology of persuasion and things like that.
All of those types of things. Yeah, which again is
it's all exciting stuff.
I'd say as an intro into the sales world, it's definitely been trial by fire out the ass. And it's been like, all right, bro, like I kind of want that direction a little bit more. Even just understanding of like, all right, what's the strategy? Hey, what is the strategy? I don't necessarily know exactly what the strategy is for this specific. What's strategy for this specific thing? But again, like you said, we'll delve into that.
We'll dive into that. We'll break it down, and where we need to make adjustments within our systems and our process, I think we do it. And we just do it as we're going. So this will be a fun series for me.
Oh, it sounds good. I'm excited.
All right, signing off. So we just wrapped up the podcast with myself, Jimmy Talbert, and Joe Black, and my favorite part was really learning about what his struggles have been as a kind of small business, almost partner, in growing this company that we have, and understanding that and understanding where the gaps fall. I think as someone who's been in the sales and marketing world for the last 17 years, I take for granted a lot of things that I know. And so better understanding the things that he doesn't know, and I think the things that probably most business owners and entrepreneurs don't fully grasp and understand, was insightful. And I was really, it was nice to be able to hear that from him, and then be able to relay some knowledge and everything, and kind of set up where other episodes will go that will help with those things. So stay tuned.
How's it going, everybody? Thank you for stopping by for another Why Not Results podcast. Got the chance to sit down with Jimmy in my short time here so far with Why Not Results and explain some of my problems. My favorite part from it in general was just probably outlining what I didn't know, similar to what Jimmy's saying about his favorite parts. To me, not understanding certain things and having the ability to, understand I don't know those things yet, and learning that knowledge for those specific topics is something that I think I cherish the opportunity to be able to share and learn a ton about. So that's kind of my favorite part from it, learning those types of things. So